It's so obvious. This bull market is just getting started and Bitcoin is already at 60k. This chart tells us that we have between 330 and 400 more days of a Bitcoin bull market. Things are looking really good. And right now, we have one of the best and biggest opportunities that you may ever see in your lifetime. So in this video, I'm going to break down exactly what we should be looking at, what's going on with Bitcoin, and what is happening in the wider market. I'm also going to talk about how we should be taking profits and where we should be looking to double down. So hit that like button and let's get into today's video. Now, first things first, because I know I've got you a little bit excited with that promise of 330 to 400 days, which is, between another year and, maybe a bit more than a year or a bit less. This chart. Now, this chart shows the RSI, or Relative Strength Index. And what many people will say is when we run into overbought territories or underbought, there's a good chance of a correction. But look at every time so far that Bitcoin has crossed over this line and look at the following price action. For a good year, we basically run in crazy overheated bull markets. We then go into bear markets. And you can see the result. We literally have just touched, at the start of this year, this green band right now, which means that we now have until perhaps the end of this year, or maybe into this sort of time next year, of Bitcoin upcycle. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't be dips, but things look great. Now, I know everyone says this. This time is different, and it's kind of a bit of a schoolboy error to say this phrase in crypto. I'm going to put myself out there and say that it is. Look at this chart, okay? And I'm going to keep throwing charts in your face because you need to really understand why everything's moving. This chart tells us that the Bitcoin ETF volume yesterday was at like $6 billion in like forever. That's the biggest it's been. And this is the Bitcoin ETF versus the gold ETF, exchange traded funds. The gold ETF, which has been around since 2004, $92 billion. Bitcoin ETF already at half that, and looks like it will probably catch it in the next few weeks if things continue the way they're going. So why is this so bullish for Bitcoin? Well, the Bitcoin ETF, I'm sure you're aware by now, is the exchange traded fund. If BlackRock wants to sell to its investors an ETF, it must hold the Bitcoin in order for people to hold the ETF, which means that all these people who previously didn't have access to Bitcoin now have access to being able to buy it through a legitimate platform like BlackRock or whatever else. And now we've just rolled into that kind of retail phase sector of the bull market. Those people are now getting exposed to Bitcoin news. Just today, I've had a bunch of my friends hitting me up being like, is it a good time to buy Bitcoin? That retail phase is just beginning. It's about to go absolutely bananas. So yeah, keep paying attention to this. When we're seeing continued growth in the ETFs and things like that, it's just going to keep driving Bitcoin. And how can we see the retailer getting back in? Or at least we're starting to see that kind of retail phase of the market? Well, because we can see Coinbase's total volume. This pink line from retail has gone from this kind of bottom level to suddenly turning and starting to spike up. Basically the same as any chart, okay? We're starting to see action come back in, things get exciting again, everyone dives back in, drives up the price of Bitcoin. And you're like, well, I don't give a shit about Bitcoin because I'm holding like all these altcoins. Fair enough, but Bitcoin drives the bull market. Look at it, guys. This is the last week. You've got Pepe, Arweave, Bonk, all absolutely going crazy. And we're seeing pumps across the board. Bitcoin brings all that money into the market. All of those people who've been making money in Bitcoin are then taking profits and putting them into altcoins. That drives the altcoin season. And you're like, yeah, cool story. Tell me what to buy. Tell me what to buy. Should I buy Bonk? Should I be buying Arweave? Should I be buying Pepe? Well, okay. Well, here's the problem, right? Because you're not subscribed, you're thinking of this in a backwards way. Everything in crypto is basically driven by our emotions, and our emotions are completely backward of what we should be doing. When we see like a coin that's been pumping, our eyes are drawn to Arweave, Pepe, and Bonk instantly on this particular chart. And if I go for like the other ones, smaller caps, you'll see that, I'm looking at Whiff, Dog Whiff Hat, and all these other bits and pieces. But the problem with that is when those coins are already up, those people who are in those coins are starting to take money out, which means if you're buying in, you're just providing that liquidity for them to exit. No. This is a bad thing. Shouldn't be just diving into coins that are heavily up. And if you're like asking, is it too late to buy? The answer is yes, because the fact that you don't know whether it's too late to buy or not tells me that you don't know about that coin. And guys, remember, you've got 330 to 400 days of up market. Of market is going up. And what does that mean for us? It means you've got to really fuck this up to lose money. But lots of people do lose money because they just go to a chart like this and they're like, wow, dog with hats up 133%. It must keep going for sure. So we dive in, we hope it goes up, it goes, and it comes against us. And meme coins are particularly dangerous because meme coins go up incredibly fast. They get so much hype and hysteria, and then they die very, very fast. Why is that? Well, because unlike other coins, they're not backed up by anything. But let's take a look at some better examples. A cash network, deep in narrative, a coin that I've talked about a little bit, has been going absolutely crazy. And to the untrained eye, you might be like, well, it's just going crazy because lots of people are buying into it. They are buying into it, but why are they buying into it? Well, what do we know about cash? Well, cash is in the world of decentralized compute networks, basically providing compute power back through nodes to users who are demanding this. Now, compute power is heavily in demand because of things like gaming, because of other bits and pieces like AI. And this is a cash. Stats, the active leases on a cash are absolutely booming towards the upside, which means that this coin is not just booming because of hype and hysteria across YouTube, but it's booming because it's actually working as a network and people are using it. It's getting heavily used. It's causing a surge in the price. So is it too late to buy cash? Well, I'll talk about that in a moment. But if you were to compare, let's say, a cash that's been pumping and let's say Pepe that's been pumping, there's one that's definitely the safer bet there because one's sort of pumped on hot air and the other's kind of pumped on, actual usage, which, let's be honest, is pretty rare in crypto. Most of it's hot air. So as we come back to the top 100 and we see who else has been pumping recently, we've got a cash obviously up there, Ajax has been doing well, and Arweave up 213%. So again, what's the cause of this? You shouldn't be asking the question to people, is it too late to buy? If you're asking that question, you don't know, you need to go and find out. Why is it pumping? What is the catalyst? What's causing it? Because always there's something. And if you can't find the news story and whatever else, it's just because of a load of hype and hysteria, which means it will always go and cool off and die off for a bit. Doesn't mean it dies off forever, it just cools off for a bit and then it comes back in. So anyway, we just said that Arweave has been going crazy. So let's think about Arweave. Why is Arweave going crazy? I hear you cry. Well, I've also been talking to you recently, and if you're subscribed, you probably would have bought Arweave or you would have bought Filecoin because decentralized storage networks are some of the most exciting opportunities when you think about them in terms of the demand for the services they provide. And as we look across to this, we can see that Arweave is currently running at over 600 transactions per second with over 30 million transactions per day following a test launch on this particular platform here. You can see all of the different transactions, making it one of the top performing autonomous blockchains at the moment, which has meant that Arweave has done this. So right now I say to myself, is it too late to buy Arweave? And I look at the chart and I look back at the camera and I say, absolutely, it's too late. For now, it's too late. But is it too late bearing in mind that we've got another 330 to 400 days of bull market left? Probably not. But is this a good time to buy? Well, the fact that you are asking that question, you know it's not a good time to buy. Look at it. In the last day, yesterday, it went up 52%. Chances are it could sort of stick here. Maybe it goes higher. Maybe it goes lower. Whatever it does. But ultimately, there's a very good chance of having a significant pullback. Even though Arweave and also a cash have been doing this, do you know who else has been successful and making good money? Render Network. But Render Network still did this and still had a healthy pullback halfway up, where it pulled back around 36% at one point. Solana's been incredibly successful recently, even outstripping Ethereum in terms of numbers of transactions, which is absolutely crazy. And yet it still pulled back from this high and it dipped 38%. So what am I saying? Is it really clear? Well, investing in projects that have recently been rallying really, really hard and aggressively is not necessarily a good thing, but I still want to know about them. If Solana, for example, was rallying extremely aggressively back at the end of last year and has been performing extremely strongly and is continuing to get good growth, but the price chart starts to pull back heavily, well, now I know that Solana's probably a good coin that I want to buy the dip in. Because right now, Solana hasn't really been doing a huge amount, and Ethereum's been basically onboarding a lot of people. And we've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks. The Ethereum ecosystem is absolutely booming, and people have been getting more and more excited about Ethereum. But as Bitcoin continues to grow and Ethereum continues to grow, it will also start to slow down. People will then start to look back to coins that have previously been performing strongly because the narrative and because they've been getting on lots of transactions and lots of things have been going well. That coin will then have a nice healthy pullback. Eventually, you'll be able to identify an area it falls back to, which I did say was probably in this buy zone down here. Lo and behold, it didn't reach down here. but it did display in this area that it was getting bought up heavily every time it was dipping below kind of $90. Eventually it comes and dips even harder down below sort of $90, gave even way to $80. Perfect opportunity to buy in this area where you can see big money comes and buys this Solana. Solana then continues towards the upside. I think that Solana is going to be starting to move very, very soon again. And once it breaks beyond this high previously, I think we could see a bit of aggressive growth. Solana heading to $150, $160 in a fairly short space of time. Okay, so that's talking about whether we should be entering into the coins, but what about taking profits? Let's look at a coin that a lot of people have been talking about recently. A coin we featured on the channel 3 months ago when the price was all the way back down here. We featured it around the start of December. Since then, it's blown up and the current price is around 12x from where we are right now. So it makes a bit of sense that you should be subscribed. I don't know how many times I can ask you. Get in. Now guys, AGI, Delesium, AI agents. I've been talking about AI agents and why we're so pumped about them. And you can see Fallow Network, another one, which I've been talking about for the last few days, also absolutely blowing up. Talked about it on a live stream the other day. And yeah, still going. But I'm going to tell you, are we taking profits yet? Okay. Interesting. The top key topic of discussion, and hopefully what I've been talking about so far has led us to whether or not we should take profits on any particular coin at any particular time. But do we take profits? That depends on a few different things. I've already talked to you about the importance of having a goal in mind. So for example, if I started this bull market with 10k and my goal was to get 100k and I've put like 10k in and my 10k is now worth like 200k, well, I wanted to get 100k out of this bull market. So maybe now I can take 100k out of this bull market and go and use it for paying off my mortgage or doing whatever I wanted to do with it. Or maybe I still have money to make in this market, but remember to myself that there's 330 days left and not to panic and rush around. Now, one of the temptations we have at this point, are we suddenly grown, if you'd grown your 10k to 200k, you'd be thinking, well, now another 10%, which could happen today, would be another 20 grand. And if that happens for another week and it doubles in value, now I've got 400 grand and I could potentially get to $1 million very bloody soon. But remember, the higher it gets, the less people want to buy it, the more people want to sell it. Because the more people who made lots of money down here, who are smart people, will start to take profits, and it causes a sell-off. Now, when you've got previous data like this telling us where we've been in the past, then it's easier to identify where we might see some resistance coming in. Because you can see this area, there was lots of like chop around this area after the kind of initial launch, and then it kind of died off. It gets back here. Lo and behold, it starts to sell off. But you can see there was a nice pullback before that. Now, what we can do once we see nice pullbacks to identify where the next level could be, if we haven't got access to this, because we're in like a clear sky breakout, and for this I'll use a cache. What I mean by clear sky breakout is that there is no previous data because it's currently at almost all-time highs. Now let's think where we can sort of start to look at where our next levels might be. Now we can click on this Fibonacci retracement tool, and what we want to do is basically build areas that we might start to take profits in. Now let's say we've already had this push, we get this pullback. Now we then get another push and we get a pullback. Now what we want to do then is go to the previous kind of like high, which was here, you can see, before we had this pullback and it pushed previous high. We drop back down to that low before that. And in fact, if we drag that across, you will see something very interesting. And it is this. This is the 1.618 golden ratio. Typically, once it kind of pushes, pulls back and goes, it will get to 1.618 before it starts to show signs of selling off, resistance. Now, let's say that we've done our research and we know a cash has been pumping for good reason. Okay. If I'm holding still, then I can still maybe take some profits. Now, let's say I got in down here. I'm already up somewhere in the region of like 110%. Now, depending on what your goal is and where you're going in the future, now it also depends on when you get in. Because if you got in lower down and you're now up, 5x, then you maybe want to just start taking profits already. Personally, I will take profits once I'm around 2x to 3x up. Once I'm around 3x up, I might take around 50% of my initial investment out. Once I hit around 5x, I'll take away my entire initial investment based on a project like a cash that I think has very good legs to go forward. This gives me an opportunity that if a cash suddenly just continues to pump in an unreasonable manner, that I can continue to take some profits off the table until eventually I get a nice pullback. And then if I want, the money I've taken off the table can then go back into a cash, and then I'm in a significantly better position. Once you start selling coins, it doesn't mean that you can't go back in at any other point, but it means that, there's a good chance that this might start to cool down, and then you can move across to something else and continue to make some gains and then jump back in. For example, people who did this, right? Casper, around the 19th of November, there would have been people smart enough to sell because, they knew that it was very hot right now. It had been running really hot. Everyone was in every comment section telling you how great it was. It's a good indication that it's going to come for a pullback. So that was around the 19th of November. On the 19th of November, you could have gone into something like ICP down here. ICP then from the 19th of November runs really hot, does 252% until like the 7th of January, and then it pulls back aggressively. And now you could then get back into Casper somewhere in this green buy zone, which was fairly obvious and why it's marked on here. And then you get back in, and now you get another like 80% out of Casper, rather than those who just held and stuck in Casper, who are now up another 16% from all the way back in November. Okay, so every project has a good pullback. I'm saying that once they have a pullback, maybe look into projects that you think have a good future because of, what they're doing. Are they bringing on new developers? Are they bringing in, are there huge transactions going on chain? Lots of bits and pieces like that. If, however, it's a meme coin and you think just because it's pulled back 30% that there's a good chance to get into, it usually isn't. For example, Coquino, after this kind of insane pump that it had back in December, then pulled back like down into this area, and probably a lot of people were like, oh, it's had a nice pullback, I'm going to get back in, and then eventually they find themselves down 80%. Meme coins will always do similar things, so hopefully that's enlightened you a little. Right now is a very exciting time. There's lots of things going on. You probably hold a bunch of crypto coins already that are doing really well. Don't be afraid to take profits from them. You've always got a chance to get back into them at some other point. Nothing's going to go up in a completely straight line. It's always going to have pullbacks, so take profits along the way. And guys, just because today Jasmine is pumping and Bonk is pumping, there's a good chance that tomorrow they're going to be the biggest red bubbles on this chart. And some of these big red bubbles could potentially be the biggest green bubbles tomorrow. So what I'm saying is don't just jump around and just keep buying the kind of tops of all these coins, because you will just get wrecked. And that's how you're going to lose money. Now, guys, I'm delighted to say that today's video is in partnership with none other than Metamask. Now, you've probably heard about Metamask, and you probably have already been using it. But did you know there's a bunch of different functions available for Metamask? Now, if you are new to crypto, then you probably have already been using some of the big exchanges. That's fine. I'm not trying to scare you off, but exchanges is something you should never fully trust. And what's a perfect example of centralized exchanges not to be trusted? Well, good old FTX. One of the biggest exchanges in the last bull market collapsed, went to dust. So if you want to stay under the radar in Web3, then you need to get yourself a Metamask wallet. Now, if you go to the Chrome Web Store, you can go and download Metamask for absolutely free. But there's now a new function available where you go to portfolio.metamask.io and you can see your portfolio of tokens down below. Now, personally, I use lots of different Metamasks for various different bits and pieces. This one, you can see I'm holding Auto Nolas. No secret, I've been talking about that a lot on this channel because AI agents are the future. And you're like, well, okay, Metamask is just good for Ethereum. Well, actually, you're wrong. You can actually use Metamask for a bunch of different things, such as Layer 2s, for Binance Smart Chain, and others. And all you need to do is click on your little Metamask tab here, click on the top left drop down, and you can see you can either have networks here or add them. Just click Add Network, and you can just add Avalanche or whatever you want to do. Just click Approve, and now you can see I now have Avalanche Chain available here. If I click on Avalanche, then you can see I can now store AVAX on here. Another chain that I think is going to do incredibly well. Now, there's other things that are really key. You can click on the swap function, click Enable Smart Swaps, and then you can just swap Ethereum into whatever other ETH token you want. So, for example, I wanted to buy some more OLAS. I would just type OLAS. I click on that here, and you can see I can then just select the amount that I want to buy in Ethereum. Let's say I just want to buy 0.01. Click that, and you can see it's going to go away and fetch quotes. I can send tokens to other people and other exchanges, and also by clicking bridge, it's going to bring me across to this page, and you can see that I can take tokens from one network and bridge them onto another. So for example, I want to send Ethereum and I want to bridge it across to another network like BNB. I could take like OLAS or whatever other token, and you can do that this way. So there is so many more features available now on MetaMask than there ever used to be, but it's still the easiest wallet out there and an absolute must for you if you're new to cryptocurrency. Now, it's also an essential piece of kit if you're entering into pre-sales, whether that be through my venture capital fund. If you want to get into pre-sales, then go to the inner circle link down below and you can get into pre-sales, because sometimes you need to provide yourself an ERC20 wallet to be able to store various ERC20 tokens, which is also key for airdrops. So all I would need to do was click on that, and at the top you copy your token address, and then you can enter into various pre-sales. So you can see I was in a pre-sale for fuel back at the end of last year, and I still hold these tokens now for when the network goes live, and then I can interact with them whenever I want. So make sure you check out the portfolio.metamask.io. You can go through all the different functions and explore all the different opportunities that are within this particular platform. And also a new feature that they brought in is staking, where you can earn rewards for staking through your Metamask. It's the simplest, easiest to use Web3 wallet in the whole of the crypto space. There's so many tutorials available online if you want to get more out of it. But I recommend just going through the link down below. You can go and pick yourself up a Metamask wallet. Hit the like button, guys. If you're new to the channel and you haven't already, then subscribe, and I'll see you in the very next video. Bye-bye.